So, sometime roughly 15,000 years ago, humanity starts this wonderful thing called agriculture. Okay, it could be a blessing or a curse, but we start planting plants in the ground and we become a little bit more, what's the word? I was just going to say sedentary, and sedentary is not the right word at all. You're no longer nomadic, you stay in one place. And roughly 10,000 BC, 8,000 BC, roughly, there's a first recorded civilization that we found via archaeology. We refer to it as Jericho. And that's kind of neat. When you're digging in the ground, you find a really old wall to a city and a bunch of buildings. You go, how old is this thing? Oh, roughly 10 to 12,000 years old. So kind of blows your mind a little bit how long we've been around. And fast forward a little bit to 3000 BC, you get ancient Sumer, and they invent writing in the form of cuneiform. It's kind of like hieroglyphics, is my understanding, but I think I could be wrong in that. Please look it up. And so you get ancient Sumer, and in that area of the Mesopotamian, you have a handful of different societies: the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and I'm missing one or two. But in that span of time, you come down to, oh, roughly 1000 BC, leading up to year zero. and and in that span of time, you're going to get the Persians and the Greeks coming about until roughly 500 BC. You get the Roman Republic coming about. Okay, so the Romans, they had aqueducts in their society. That's basically a sewer system, right? And around 27 AD, it might be 24, I don't remember. Um, you get the Roman Empire established. The Republic falls, a dictator takes their place, an emperor. Okay, it doesn't have to be a dictator. Maybe they're a benevolent emperor. I don't know. I wasn't there. And it goes from a republic to an empire. So then, they get a little too spread out. Logistics are really difficult to maintain the empire. Barbarians are causing lots of problems. Barbarians at the gates, right? And the empire eventually collapses. It splits into something you would recognize as more of a modern Europe, but you wouldn't recognize it as that. It's a bunch of different fiefdoms in that area. Essentially, the Roman Empire falls, and we enter a period of feudalism in humanity. So you have a king, and they own whatever area of land, right? And then there's lords underneath the king, and they are kind of magistrates in specific areas of the land, and they protect the serfs who work the land. Okay, there is feudalism as a whole, and we do this for roughly 1,000 years, from 500 AD until about 1500. Certain parts of that are referred to as the Dark Ages. Many historians dispute that it should be called that because, of course, there's still advances happening. But it's fair to say that humanity during this time took a little bit of a step backwards. Remember those aqueducts, right? They're not being used. During certain parts of this 1,000-year span from 500 to 1500 AD, a lot of waste is thrown in the streets, right? You imagine a medieval town and it's dirty and it probably smells like a midden heap, and it's not as clean as you would prefer today. Maybe not as clean as it was back in 300 BC. Um, it's fair to say that humanity took a step back when the Roman Empire fell and things split up into fiefdoms, right? So what changed? What changed over time? You get to a point in time, roughly 1300 AD to 1500, in that time frame. I believe it was in the 1400s. Gutenberg invents the printing press. Oh, neato. So now reading material is more abundant. It can be spread faster and cheaper. So reading goes on the rise. Literacy rises amongst the public. Okay, well, another thing happens over in Constantinople. The Ottoman Empire invades the Byzantine Empire, right? They sack Constantinople. It's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. They invade, okay? And so you have all these Constantinople people. You have refugees leaving there, and they have many different Greek and Roman papers, textbooks, philosophical writings. They have gathered all these texts and they're taking them west into Europe as they flee the Ottoman Empire invading, right? So you have this printing press and you have all these ancient wisdoms written down. Well, those get mass produced, spread amongst people. Now people are thinking about these, at the time and now, ancient ideas that were better than what they've been living, right? They're like, oh, I don't just have to till the land and farm potatoes. I could be thinking about things like human rights and what does being alive mean, and are numbers a real thing in existence, like a Platonic structure, or are they just figments of the imagination? You know, it gets people thinking again that maybe there's a better life outside of just what they're doing. Um, what else happened around that time? I'm missing a few things. Um, Luther, Martin Luther has a Protestant Reformation. Okay, so this, whether you agree that the Reformation was a good thing or not, you're religious or not, it doesn't matter. It got people talking about intellectual concepts such as religion or life after death. It got them talking about like who's right in this scenario. You know, is it the Catholic Church? Is it Luther? And so people are thinking about more than just their potatoes. They're thinking about Greek and Roman philosophy. They're thinking about religious concepts. Those are really big in waking people up, in acknowledging that things could be different. Okay. And then you have another catalyst called the Black Plague. Okay, maybe you've heard of this thing. It kills between 30 and 60% of the population in Europe. So a lot of people die. A lot of bad stuff comes about because everyone's sick, and it is indiscriminate in who gets ill, right? There's the nobility getting ill, the serfs are getting ill. Everyone is just not doing so hot when 30 to 60% of people die. Okay. And down below, please correct any numbers or anything that I get wrong, please. I'm learning just the same as you, right? Uh, so a bunch of people are dead, and now the serfs have a little bit more bargaining power, right, in the workforce in this feudal system because there's less of them to do the work, to till the land. So in a way, it's kind of like the first workers union because there's a lot less of them to do the work. So the lords have to treat them better in order to use them to take care of the underlying land, right? Um, let's see. Then you get to the Renaissance, right? There's advancements in art and science and deep thinking. We start thinking about the world differently. Around this time, there's a rise of a merchant class in Italy because trade is going on, and these merchants, they have excess money. So they fund art projects, they fund scientific endeavors, and we grow not only in our ability to produce art, but in our ability to understand the world around us. It's an age of expansion. We discover more of the world. Okay? I'm totally paraphrasing here and jumping kind of all over the place, but giving you a rough idea. We explore more of the world. We send ships across the ocean. We're trying to find ways to get to India, but we end up discovering a whole new continent. So the world gets larger. It's an age of discovery, both internal and external. Right? Let's see. Shortly after that, age of expansion, we get enlightenment. Okay, so a bunch of this is the age of enlightenment. You can look it up. It's basically we start down a road of secularism and individual rights, um, basically questioning authority in a healthy way. So I question authority. I'm very harsh on my leaders. I want them to be competent, okay? When they mess up, I'm really harsh on them. But I just want whoever's in charge to be competent, to earn the position, okay? But you could argue that that is an unhealthy trust of authority, okay? Does that make sense? Because some authority is there for a reason. Some people have earned that position. Some authority is necessary to keep peace in a civil society. Sure, sure, sure. But at that time, a skepticism based towards authority is a good thing because authority there is kings and lords and you're a serf, and maybe if you question that, we could have more individual rights. We could be a you could have more power as an individual to pursue a life of your own choosing rather than being a potato farmer your whole life. Do you see? So the Age of Enlightenment is really big on not just science and art, but also individualism, helping the individual to achieve self-actualization, right? Even if it's just the beginning seeds of that. It it brings about a movement such that more people accept these ideas as something worth exploring. Okay? So you get that, and then we're talking major advancements in mathematics and science. I mean, you have Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton and a handful of other people who escape my mind, and I deeply apologize because there's lots of advances at this time that help humanity as a whole, right? You need this advanced mathematics so then engineering can come about. And engineering, yes, there was engineering in the past, and it used trigonometry excessively and in very good ways. Look at things like the Archimedes screw for different irrigation solutions. Like, there's a lot of good engineering in the past, but engineering just steps its game up like crazy after the Age of Enlightenment, and we end up with an industrial revolution. You start making little engines, and they're not very efficient. They're mostly used to pump water out of coal mines, but those get optimized over time. You know, engineers sit down and they're like, oh, yes, look, thermodynamics, we can make this engine more efficient, you know, less heat loss, more work. And now you can make goods more cheaply. Okay? And there's pros and cons to all of these. There's side effects we don't expect that come about as things advance. Absolutely. It's outside the scope of this video. But we get an industrial revolution that completely changes how society functions. And things have just accelerated since then. Okay, you move on from an industrial revolution in the late 1700s to through the 1800s. You get to the 1900s, and industrialization has taken off to such a point that most things are made on a large scale. It's the mom and pop shops, you know, they're a little bit smaller. You know, you don't have to go to the cobbler to get shoes. You go to Nike, which definitely existed in 1902, right? You see my point. Things are mostly mass produced. And at least that trend is growing, even if it's not mostly at that particular time, right? Um, and so things are accelerating at a pace that hasn't been seen before, right? You end up with feudalism for 1,000 years, from 500 AD to 1500 AD. If not, you know, a little wiggle room on either side. Sure. Uh, you go from Jericho back in 8000 BC. It takes 5,000 years to get to ancient Sumer in 3000 BC. I mean, there's a lot of stretches of time where stuff is pretty static. It just stays the way it is. I farm potatoes, and the Lord keeps us safe, and the king rules the whole land. 1,000 years of that, okay? But since the Industrial Revolution, let's just call it the 1800s, right? That's only 200 years ago, you know, to 1824, if you're watching this in the future, right? 200 years since we invented factories, okay? And we landed on the moon, something the 50 some years ago, all right? That's really rough math, forgive me. Um, we have global trade. We have robots floating around the planet that transmit signals, okay? Those robots, you can call them computers, it doesn't matter. They're satellites, right? We just we've come a very long way. And in telling you this story, I'm thinking about the story of humanity. I'm thinking about where we've come from, and that's such a small subsect of the history of humanity. I'm thinking about where we've come from, what we've accomplished, what we've overcome, the catalysts that brought in that change, and where we are now in a time of, if you called it chaos, you wouldn't be far off, right? There's a lot of things that we're upset about. There's a lot of disconcerting aspects of our society. We have murders in the street, okay? I read a recent book recently that had a very interesting phrase in it, techno feudalism. And you can define that however you want, okay? I'm not taking any political side in this, but people do bring up that some workers aren't treated as well as they possibly could be, right? Well, is that much different from feudalism? I just think about it. Like, we're in a place where there are parts of society that we don't like, that are troublesome, that are causing people grief. And this has happened in the past. This has all happened in the past. It's We've had problems that we've solved. that we've had solutions to over time, and it all came from human ingenuity. Whether we found some document from the past that contained some wisdom and got us thinking, or it solved the problem that we were having now, or it was something that we thought up to solve the issue, it all comes from up here. We all improve over time by putting in some human effort. And so, yeah, things are chaotic or frustrating or unfair. There's massive inequality in places. Hey, no one's taking that from you. No one's denying that. But it's not insurmountable. It's not a problem that can't be fixed. It's not something that will doom the human race. The Earth is estimated to be roughly 4.5 billion years old. And it's estimated also that the sun will expand at some point in its life cycle and eat the Earth. Either the Earth goes like flying off due to gravitational forces, or it gets sucked into the sun and eaten by the sun, right? And that's going to happen in roughly 5 billion years. Well, 4.5 and 5 are pretty close together, so we could say that the Earth is about halfway through its life cycle, if you will. The Earth is like halfway through its life cycle. What do you expect to happen for humanity? Like we're figuring this out as we're going along, okay? It's going to be painful, it's going to be frustrating, it's going to be incredibly dangerous and uncertain. We have no idea how any of this is going to turn out. We have no idea what we're doing. We're figuring it out as we go along. And we still got 5 billion years to figure it out before the sun eats us. So everyone take a deep breath, okay? We're going to take a deep breath, because I know you're frustrated and I know things are unfair and it's not working out. But you aren't a serf. You aren't some random person on the plains hunting for food, not sure if you're going to have food tomorrow. Okay? You're not an unlucky coal miner in a mine that just flooded. Okay? You have running water, especially if you're watching this video. You're in a very good place. And I think we lose sight of that. I think we lose sight of how easy things are today compared to 100 years ago, compared to 200 years ago, compared to 12,000 years ago. Things are actually really good. And yes, there's problems. But yes, we will solve them. We will solve them. We'll figure it out. And to kind of draw all this into a thesis, because I can hear my family coming in, you might hear them in the other room. So to conclude all this, I think the way that we find the solutions to these problems is by zooming in. I think we're being bombarded by the wisdom of either Buddha or more recently Jordan Peterson, if you will. Buddha says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Okay. Jordan Peterson said, "Clean your room." I think they're both right. Whether you agree with them, you like them as a character, you disagree with them politically, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Listen to the message for just a second. Clean your room. Be the change you wish to see in the world. What am I saying by zoom in? I don't think I can go out in the street and cause radical change right now that changes the course of humanity, that makes the world a better place. I don't believe in myself to that capacity. Like you're going to be some huge driver of awesomeness for the world. And I don't think you are either. Because think about the great people in history, right? They've nudged humanity along in different directions. If on the good or bad spectrum, it doesn't matter. If you go back to Hitler or Napoleon or Isaac Newton or any great person, they did good things that nudged humanity a little bit. But how did they do those great things? How did they develop the habits to become the person to do the thing that nudged humanity? They focused in, they zoomed in on their own life. You know, like Mary Curie, she couldn't have made the discoveries in chemistry if she wasn't interested in chemistry to begin with. And she studied, she worked her butt off to learn all that stuff and do the research she did. And she advanced the field of chemistry and humanity's knowledge and every invention that's ever come about due to her research on radiation, just by doing her own thing, just by focusing on herself, on her own life. And I think that's what we have to do now. Think about this. You are basically the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So whether you want to or not, you're going to pick up the habits and thought patterns and mannerisms of everyone that you surround yourself with. Usually the 5 people you spend the most time around. All right. So as you improve your life, as you become a better person, you will either push some people away because they won't resonate with what you're doing or the conclusions you're coming to, but the people who stick around will inevitably become like you. They will learn from your example. They will solve problems in a similar fashion to how you're solving them. They will model their life after you, just as you will do the same with them. And so by becoming better in your life, by solving your own problems, by improving yourself, your sphere of influence, your world will get better because your life, the life you wake up to, the life you live every single day, it is your life. You have to interact with it constantly. And those 5 people, or the 4,000, it doesn't matter how many people you see. Those 5 people around you, they have to interact with your life as well. And you will affect their lives as you go about your day, right? So by making that little piece of the puzzle, your life, better, it will inadvertently make all these other pieces better around you. Do you see? That's how we fix the problems. That's how we make the world a better place. That's how we overcome techno feudalism or stop farming potatoes for all our lives and for all the lives of every generation following us. You make your life a little bit better. You solve whatever little issue you have right now. Like when I'm walking, my ankle's really sore. Well, you got to do some physical therapy to fix the ankle. Okay? Like I don't make enough money. Well, you got to learn something to do that will get paid more so you make more money. Like just little steps along the way. I want to lose 20 pounds. I got to change my diet. I got to exercise more. Do you see? Like that is how you're going to make it better. And when you do that in your life, it improves everything around you. Be the change you wish to see in the world. That's how we fix it. The whole issue with how society is run, how economics work, how, like, am I going to afford this bill? Those will be solved as you fix those little pieces. You're thinking about, like, how do I afford health insurance? That's a great question. But you can't go out and change the whole medical field right now. It doesn't. What are you going to do that? And I know there's been some recent events. Do you think that will change anything on a grand scale? No, really ask that question. Really. You can do this. You can make your life better. You can improve. And the world will get better around you as you set yourself up for success. Because that's what we've seen through history on a grand scale for humanity and in individual cases. Anyway, hope you have a good day. Thank you for listening and take care of yourself. Talk to you later.